Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the PYRESWAP show. I'm really excited about today because I think we're going to move the needle forward in the type of material we're discussing on the PYRESWAP show, and that's mainly to acknowledge the fact that lots of people have been with us on this journey now for 6 months just in open beta, and I think that in a 6-month period, I think that a lot of people have gotten very familiar with the standard witch game to the point that we can now kind of reveal a layer with which it can be advanced. And since I'm getting zoomed out a little bit, let me show you guys something. Look at what we got, guys. Can you see it? Can you see it? Can you see it? This is one of those roller TV stands. Do you guys remember these? Do you guys remember these? Remember when you weren't in school and the teacher would roll out one of these stands and they would have a TV on it and then it would be ratcheted to the thing? It would be ratcheted to the thing. Yes. Yes, so we have a TV stand. So on certain days when I'm just grading tests, you guys can watch Bill Nye the Science Guy or possibly Schoolhouse Rock. Okay, guys? I'm kidding. But anyways, we will be using this later. We'll be using this later. That's a sneak peek of something to come. But I just wanted to share it to you guys now. We happened to find a TV stand for a CRT monitor that, well, let's leave a little bit of a secret right now. But first of all, I'm going to talk about EPR targets. I'm going to talk about the advanced witch game. Before I get into that, I am going to attempt to play the incantation again today at the right time with Pyre Phantom. But before that, I'll keep talking about deflation for a minute. So first of all, we can keep reducing our emissions until we hit our deflationary goal. Does that make sense? So over the last 24 hours, I'm seeing that the PyroGas tokens are still between like 4 and 7% decline. PyroAVAX is not even registering because I think it didn't get the volume. But the fact of the matter is that we're at a 1% daily expansion rate. I don't really expect it to be overnight because the price... the way that emissions affect price is delayed. So like the fact that I would expect it to be a significant decrease in the first day, I wouldn't at all. Not in the first 2 days either. Rather, I want you guys to know that from 1%, if we don't see the curve get flat enough, we can go to 0.7%, and then we can go to, we'll do it like this. We can go to 0.5%, and then we can go to like 0.3%. Does that make sense? Until we get to our uptrend. Does that make sense? I might jump significantly, but I want you guys to understand that I think by the time we get to 0.5, it'll be redundant because we definitely have like a higher rate of deflation than people realize. Do you guys get what I'm saying? Okay. Anyways, that's just all I'm going to say. And again, when we do these inflation tapering measures, they don't create overnight results. They don't do it at the Federal Reserve either. These results are not overnight. You're adjusting the rate of something with the expectation that it'll affect the future change in trend. Does that make sense, everybody? Okay. So, the witch game, as you guys understand it, we're going to talk about advanced witch game. And the advanced witch game really involves adding a new layer to the witch game. And I think that a lot of people don't understand this layer, but this layer is very, very important. This layer is the human layer. I want you guys to understand something. First of all, do you guys know that Satoshi Nakamoto invented Bitcoin because he worked on it prior to debuting it? And then after he debuted it, he still had to keep putting ideas into people's heads? Did you guys know that if he didn't put ideas in other people's heads, like Bitcoin doesn't work? There is no $1 trillion market cap. There is no multi-trillion dollar industry. Like none of this works if like ideas don't get placed in the people's heads. Do you guys understand? Do you guys understand? That like it is a necessary ingredient. It is a necessary ingredient. Because if you invent Bitcoin and then don't spread the idea of it, it's just you mining your own currency. There's no market development because you're not creating the the de-individuation and the aggregation of players. Do you guys understand? Like the human layer, right? We talk about like the front end and the back end, right? You have the front end, the back end, the chain end, right? There's another layer on top of that. I guess you would call it like the game end, but I don't really want to call it the game end. Yeah. Front end, data end, contract end, game end, human end, whatever you want to call it. The layer that's human to human matters a lot. And I want you guys to understand that Discord, even though it's not exactly a decentralized application, it was always a key ingredient in the formation of the Centiwid Circus, and it was kind of a key ingredient in the design of how PYRESWAP works, okay? Now, communication does not have to take place on Discord. Ideally, we weren't doing that, that wasn't how Bitcoin worked. Bitcoin had Bitcoin Talk, right? There was message boards and forums and stuff like that. Do you guys understand what I'm saying? But like, if the idea doesn't exist in human heads, there is no market. Do you get what I'm saying? Because like, we're not just dealing with like bots here. You're dealing with like humans and their incentives and motivations. Like what causes humans to move towards something versus what causes them to move away from it. It's not exactly a mystery. I know that not everybody can see this layer. Like your brain might not be equipped to think about this, but this layer changes the game. This layer changes the game. It's obvious to me, but when I spread these ideas to you, it will become obvious to you as well. Does everyone understand me? Culture end. Well, you know what? Culture also involves ideas. Culture also involves ideas. So I'm going to talk about the fact that this is a game. When we talk about the GPSE, we do mean there's factions. There are factions in the GPSE. The major factions are called witches and knights. And the factions, like as an organization, are called covens in contrast to knighthoods. Now, knighthood is not exactly the term for the organization in regular English. The word order is used. Like, so you have like the Order of the Holy Cross or the Order of St. John or whatever. But like, we're going to call them knighthoods because it's mostly an applicable term, and it kind of belongs. It kind of means like you belong to the knights, right? Knighthood is normally like the status of knighthood, but we're going to use it as like the container word for knights that are organized. Now, in order for organization between humans to take place, communication needs to take place. Did you guys know this? Communication is a necessary ingredient for organization. Now, sometimes this communication is not explicit, but it still ends up organizing people, right? So like the way that pedestrians like move through the streets of a place like Manhattan, it's still kind of organized, even if people are kind of just like indicating where they're walking with their body language. There is still communication taking place. If you look at like the way that a price chart behaves, price is information. So when a actor transacts on a price chart and that chart shows up, that's information that's being conveyed to everybody else looking at the chart. Do you guys understand? Yes? Okay. So, the advanced witch game involves organizing the witches. And this is done not with this perfect amount of organization, because there's levels of the witch game that are always self-serving, but rather the advanced witch game, the coven game, is like a gentleman's agreement. Okay? I don't understand the context of what you're saying, CJ, but it is what it is. The coven game is like a gentleman's agreement. Now, first of all, I want you guys to understand something. The witch game is already designed to create a coven whether the witches realize this or not. The incentive to create a coven is always there, but it's not always understood at the most brutalistic viewpoint of a player playing the witch game. A player just inside their own head, unable to observe themselves. And the first thing we're going to talk about here is what's called normal distribution. And you have these 4 sectors. So I want you guys to understand, everybody is always trying to show up last. Everybody's always trying to show up last for the purpose of minimizing their negative yield. Would you guys agree that everybody's always trying to stake last for the purpose of mitigating the negative yield? Would you guys agree? Okay, now what if I told you that in theory, when the witches get smart enough, or when I place these ideas in their heads on a stream just like now, the witches can figure out that, hey, if I think individualistically, I can try to control negative yield. But if I learn to think as a teammate, I can learn to control positive yield. Now, believe it or not, you can control positive yield to the point where you are able to offset more and more negative yield through the power of the human layer. And this is where we get into the point of EPR targets. We talk about a target. A target is not something that's just like a thing. An EPR target is something that's set and determined by the coven. Now, oh, CJ, yeah, I understand that, yeah. Yes, but generally speaking, CJ, with the exception of experimental benefit, there is not really much incentive to continue to try to maximize your negative yield. Rather, it makes more sense that the coven, the advanced witches, figure out that everybody's always playing that game. So instead of being a rat racer, if that makes sense, like instead of just being a rat racer about it, they have an ability through the power of their ability, let's put it this way. Their ability to balance trust against risk. Okay? So imagine if you would, a terazu, and what are we balancing here? Let me see if I can find a different color. Trust against risk. Trust against risk. Does that make sense? I want you guys to understand something. Like trust and risk, first of all, are two sides of the same coin. Really, trust is positive risk and risk is negative trust. Do you get what I'm saying? The fact of the matter is, thank you, Javery. It's not that deep in my opinion. We're about to go deeper. The fact of the matter is that you can always trust anyone to a degree. Right? Like there's always a degree to which you can trust someone, and there might be a degree to which you can trust no one. Does that make sense? Like it is a spectrum. Trust is a spectrum. So the fact of the matter is when the witches get smart enough and start communicating amongst each other, they'll figure out, okay, everybody is figuring out how to rat race to get the least negative yield. But what if we could figure out a way to maximize the positive yield as well? Right? Like what if we could figure out by literally communicating a way that no matter what the maximum amount of smoldering is, the smolder cap is, we can always make it so that there is positive net yield for all players. An advanced coven can make it so that there is consistent positive yield for all players at any price in any market. It requires an advanced coven. Like it requires people who understand what the fuck this game works, which is why I'm teaching it. Okay? So, in general, imagine you are a member of the coven. Imagine you're a channeler, and the channelers are the members who discuss this, where they realize, okay, we can trust everyone is going to try to stake last. We can trust everyone's going to try to stake last to minimize negative yield. But what if there was a way to maximize positive yield to the point that the max amount of players can keep playing? Thank you, Fexer. Yeah, and by the way, Fexer, you're going to be, I think, you're going to be you're going to be in this group of 3 channelers, I think. Yeah, I think we will start this off at least. I think you guys, Fexer, you've been here 6 months, right? So there's no reason that you wouldn't learn the advanced witch game because you probably are one of the people who's played it the most. So, any witch, Fexer, now let's say Fexer is a channeler. Fexer does not need to know the other channelers' names. He doesn't need to know what countries they live in. He just needs to be able to understand that they all have arguably the same goal as he does, which is basically minimize negative yield, maximize positive yield. Now, I want you guys to understand this. Do you guys understand trust and risk? This is this degree right here. All you need to understand is that everybody has that general agenda. And if they have that general agenda, there's a degree that trust and risk can be spread around. And thus we form the real credit union. Or rather, a faction, an association within the credit union. Now, when we talk about this distribution curve, I want you guys to understand these are the sizes of the positions. These right here, now you might not understand this, but the fact of the matter is that the majority of the benefit exists in the median. Like, everyone's always trying to stake last, right? It doesn't matter what size you are. I'm playing with like 42 cents and I'm still trying to get into the last 5 seconds. Do you guys get what I'm saying? Because when you get negative yield, it's at a percentage anyway. Do you guys get what I'm saying? Like, negative yield is a percentage. So whether you're playing with $5,000 or 50 cents, it's a percentage. Does that make sense? So it's not like there's a greater incentive to stake last for somebody with a bigger bag. Like, everybody's incentive is to stake last. That is equal across the board, right? But the problem is when you are playing with the largest bag, the whale bag, you are in fact risking a larger bag. You are risking a higher amount of yield for the purpose of not necessarily getting an optimal RPM. Sorry, EPR, not RPM. You're not getting necessarily the optimal EPR. So through communication, channelers can effectively set targets. If they get really good, piston-minded. If they get really good, they can get into the column 3. But I think starting off, they should aim from going from column 1, which I think column 1 is mostly everybody is just an individual clicking the button on their screen. I think column 2 is like a junior coven, and I think column 3 is like a very, very organized senior coven. Now the coven, by the way, they're not, and I mean the channelers, they're not really bound to a single chain. They're not really bound to a single position. Yeah, they can be all over the fucking place. So because of this, when you're the smallest position and you're continually getting like yield, it makes more sense. There's a pressure to increase your position because why? It's so consistent. It's so consistent. Why wouldn't I increase my position? Now, at a certain point, there is a negative incentive as well. That at a certain point, you are in fact risking more than what will be optimal to get yield. Do you guys understand? That there's diminishing returns, and there's also, I guess you could say, whatever the opposite of diminishing is, this way, right? So when I'm playing with my bag, obviously, do you guys remember when we were beta testing? Let's see, anybody who was here in February, do you remember that for the first few weeks, I said $5. Everybody play with $5. Do you guys remember this? Who here remembers this? Okay, did you guys notice that at a certain point, I didn't have to tell people to increase their bag? As soon as they got practice, they just naturally increased their position. Does everyone understand? Yeah, okay. Does everyone understand that when you are in fact whaling the witch fault, this is not necessarily the optimization of your time? Because you would be making the same amount of money with a smaller bag and arguably risking less negative yield. Does that make sense? So, if you actually look on chain, you'll notice that naturally, the majority of the users are in the middle of the pack. Naturally, the majority of the users end up in the middle of the pack, almost as if these two economic pressures exist there, whether I told you about them or not. This is in the design. Does that make sense? Like, humans tend to live in a certain band on the planet. You don't need to convince them that they shouldn't live in the North Pole. They just naturally don't do that. Do you guys understand? Humans tend to live in a certain climate band, almost as if they're being incentivized to not go too far north or too far south. Do you guys understand? You don't have to tell them that. They just do that naturally. This is the same idea. Yeah, Jabri, indeed. Jabri, did you know that in the ocean, the majority of the life exists within 200 meters of the surface? Do you know why? Because photosynthesis is strongest in the shallowest part of the ocean, 600 feet, 200 meters, right? The deeper you go, the amount of biodiversity drops the fuck off. The majority of life in the ocean is within a few hundred meters of the surface. Did you guys know this? So, you have channelers, and channelers are effectively the witches in command. And, yes, pressure indeed. And, yes, but generally, it's considered to be that you don't have the ability to create there's phototroph. Okay. There's phototrophs and there's chemotrophs, right? So plants can generate their own food through light. Does that make sense? Deeper in the ocean, there's chemotrophs, which they generate food through like chemical reactions at like a hydrothermal vent, something like that. So these animals, whatever, these things, they create the fucking food chain. All the food chain descends from them. So the closer they are to the sun, the phototrophic is just generally more efficient. Yeah, you guys get it. I'm not going to get into the ocean. Okay. So, now that the idea is in the channelers' heads, the channelers, let's say we pick 3 of them, and we probably will, can literally decide, okay, let's pick an EPR target. Let's pick an EPR target, right? Like, let's try to communicate this to the witch players and get them, let's assume a certain player count, right? You can literally calculate, or estimate, estimate pending incants. This is all that needs to be discussed. You assume a certain player count, which, by the way, we have plenty of history about this, and it's almost like it's on the dashboard. It's almost like this is on the dashboard for you. And also, you can estimate the pending incants, which, 3 minutes. Okay, let me refresh this since apparently Okay. I am going to zoom in here to actually play this time around. Now, for those of you guys who are, I guess, more senior to the game, you guys understand the way that you can guess or even figure out what the pending incants are because it's all parked at the meeting address. All the pending incants, the incants that this 35.5 is being calculated from, that number already exists. That's already there for you to find. I think you can go to phantomscan.com. Let's see. If I search for the word mead, will it show up? It'll be in the documentation. Hang on. There we go. Goodness gracious. It's almost like you can see that there's 12,250 Pyre Phantom waiting to get distributed. And that almost implies, that almost looks like it's exactly 35% of 34,000. Now if there's 12,250 Pyre Phantom waiting to be distributed, and we assume that there's 10 players, how much would each player need to stake in order to get a EPR an EPR target of 5% realized. $12,250. We got 10 players. In order for a realized 5% EPR, what would the staked amounts need to be? Per epoch. 5%. I guess we can wait for the math quiz. We can wait for the math quiz until when the game is. Am I gonna make it? Holy shit, made a mask. I did this 20 seconds in advance. Okay, 225,000. Now divide that by 10, Alessio. Okay, I just missed it. There's no possible way I made it this time. Holy shit. Okay. I'm going to try just to see if for some reason the transpire epoch didn't work. Nope, I see 600,000 in there. Yeah. Believe it or not, this is a really slow computer, and we actually have another computer coming in today specifically about this. I'm assuming it's just gonna like reject me right now. We have a faster computer coming, which might help us. Yeah, it failed. Okay, well anyways, I have now proven that the usurping guard works 2 days in a row. Now we're using Brave. We're using Brave. Do you think Internet Explorer is faster? Anyways, so if we have 12,000, $12,250 Pyre Phantom pending. And we want people to get 5%. Yeah, target 5% EPR. Now, how did that diagram look again? On screen, you can actually pull this up on screen share actually. Smoldering offset targets. Smoldering offset targets. I would say, yeah, 0kex. If we have 12,250 Pyre Phantom with a target 5% EPR, this implies that we want to basically have the staked amount of this times 20. So 12,250 times 20 equals 245,000, right? Right? So then, like 0kex is saying, you divide that by 10. Does everyone understand? Therefore, total Pyre Phantom staked $245,000 and then divide this by 10. Equals 24.5 thousand. Does that make sense? Oh yeah, but technically 0kex, 245,000 divided by 10, because we're talking about like, we have to assume a total player count for the EPR. That's on the dashboard. It's on the dashboard. Why the fuck would we care? Yeah, total staked wallets, total stakes in ultimate hour, total stakes in ultimate moment. Like I made these 3 different cells, right? 3 different cells to really drive this home. Everybody understand? Yeah. So 245,000 divided by 10 is 24.5 thousand. Now, what's interesting is if we actually go and let's actually look at and we go to smart contract addresses. Let's go to Phantom. Let's go to let's look at the incarnation of which fault on Block Explorer here. Now we look at this exit. So we see exit from this wallet, exit from this wallet, exit from that wallet. Let's look at this one. Let's look at this one. Let's look at this one. So this one exited with 103K. So we see 103K. This one is 10,000, 10K. This one, 545K. Let's look at this one. Oops, hang on, let me open these new tabs. Look at that. Oh, this is the same one. Hang on. We're looking over here. 13,000, 14K. $50K. $3,700. I guess is this the entire player base, is it? Hang on, let me see. Do I not have these numbers? See, this one is 3,700. This one is 11K. This is the same one? Hang on. Yep, same one, okay. And this one's 271K. Okay. But anyways, if you guys see this right here, you'll notice we had this 24.5. Like, again, you guys realize like a 1.17 or some shit like that. But let's say we're gonna rank these. We're gonna rank these, right, in like low and smallest to tallest, right? $3.7K. Then you've got 10K. Then you've got 11K. Then you've got 14K. Then you've got, is it 50K? Okay. Then you've got 103K. And you've got 271K. And you've got 545K. Do you guys see this distribution right here? Now, if you think about it like this, like this number here is like 2.5 times what the bottom one here is. If you look at 545 and you think about the next one here, it is like another huge jump. Do you guys see that? Huge jumps here. So let's do the percentage between these. Okay? Let me pull up a calculator for this. If we go from, I did it again. So if we go from 3.7, okay, we'll do 10 divided by 3.7. So this is a 2.7. Now I gotta change my color here. Hang on a second. This is a factor of 2.7x, right? So let's talk about 271. 271 71 divided by 545. This is a fucking 0.49, so I guess let me think about that. I guess it'd be a double. Yeah, 2x. Okay. Now if we talk about 10k to 11k, this is very small. This is like 1.1x. 11 to this is probably like 1.3x, something like that. $78, yeah, so let me think, that'd be like 1.2x, something like that. Now 14 to fucking 50, this is basically a 3x. And I think this right here, these make up like the bottom of the thing, and then you end up with this middle, right? 50k to 103k, this is a 2x. Does that make sense? And then here, this is a 2.7x. Do you guys see that? Now, it's not always easy to see this in a single epoch, but you'll notice that there is this average, there is this median amount. If you consider there's 8 players here, the median right there was between 14k and 50k. Now, what did we say? Was going to be a good target if we wanted 5%? 24.5k. Interesting. Zero Kex, do you find it interesting that the number that you picked happens to be in the exact middle of this pack? Wow, did I tell anybody to do this? Or did you guys just do it naturally? Did I tell you guys to do this, or did you just do it naturally? And by the way, Zero Kex, that difference was between, that's the difference between an EPR of 1.1% and 5 fucking percent. So like the total amount of money distributed is not changed. But the fact of the matter is that these players here, to get a very, very small amount, maybe 1.17%, you have to understand that to get 1.17%, you're risking 7 smolders. Does that make sense? So if you're staked first, right, you net like 0.4 or something like that. Do you guys get what I'm saying? So of these 8 people that staked, somebody got smoldered 7 times. Now everybody got a 1.1 at the end. But the fact of the matter is somebody got smoldered 7 times, somebody got smoldered 6 times, somebody got smoldered 5 times, somebody got smoldered 4 times. Do you guys get what I'm saying? Only one of these people got smoldered 0 times. Correct, Zero Kex. In which case, think of it this way, Zero Kex. If you have an EPR of 5%, isn't it way easier to get smoldered 7 times? Wouldn't you guys agree that everyone can deal with smoldering 7 times if they understand to play for a 5% target? The optimal place is in the middle of a pack. Correct, Pega. Correct. Yes. So literally, I know that a lot of people have been saying new players might not fucking want to play if they're getting smoldered 10 times and the yield is only 1%. Okay, then we'll have to get the channelers ready now. And the good news is that since this is 6 months old now, there are probably a dozen people who are capable of being channelers. and all it takes is like learning how to communicate in a chat. Yeah, not hard. There's more training involved channelers and covens. And the channelers have even more advanced tactics when it comes to like the Witch Vault going arcane and stuff like that. But this right here is literally, the channelers can literally do this shorthand pencil math and say, okay, we can figure out, by the way, when the channelers pick a target, they're going to be able to, just like I did, look on chain and see who's playing near their target and who isn't. Does that make sense? And this is how credit is established. Do you get what I'm saying? Pseudonymously, credit is established through people whose names they don't even know. They can just say, hey, we as the channelers think that this is the size position you should be playing with on the Pyre Phantom Witch Vault. Does that make sense? And then on chain, they can see who is going to abide by the direction of the channelers. Does that make sense? So, you know, Zero Kex had this idea, and he said, like, shouldn't there be like mentors inside the Discord for people who are learning this for the first time? And I'm like, you know what? That's a great idea. We should just get channelers happening. We've now been doing this for 6 months. So I feel like this is there's probably a few people that we can pick off to at least be preliminary channelers. Yeah, more on that later. I'm gonna keep teaching this theory over the next week or so. Yeah. You guys knew about the channelers and the bannerets, right? You guys know about the Team Captain roles? Do you guys have seen that in the docs? So, if you've seen the diagram, the channelers can get good enough where you're getting 14% yield every epoch. But this requires the channelers to get good at their job. Who do you guys think would be good channelers? By the way, channelers are not troop members. Yeah, bannerets and channelers are not troop members. We might recruit for the troop out of bannerets and channelers, but when you become troop, you're no longer a banneret or a channeler. You are effectively, like, you're a managing member of the credit union. Does that make sense? Of PYRESWAP itself. This is a decentralized role. You don't you're not on Five's team. It's your job to protect your coven and your knighthood. That's your job. And manage it and lead them to victory. But it's incredibly easy to do. Yeah. Thank you, Doc. CJ, I believe that, yeah. Yeah, in the Navy you have that too. Yeah, so when I showed up to the submarine, I had a sea dad, which was literally like just a guy who had been there for 2 years before me. And he basically, would give me directions and stuff. Because the submarine is a confusing place. Now, I think it's a bit disappointing that 6 months went by and nobody figured this out on their own. But again, I guess my work is not yet finished. You have 6 months of data to go and determine the distribution of bags. Maybe not during the $5 phase, but all that data is there for you. But again, it's just funny how you'll notice the optimal position in the middle of the pack. This is how you, by the way, the coven is risk reversal. Does that make sense? This is the idea of credit union and credit association, because you can now place a higher degree of trust in the other members, and this is risk reversal. So because there's now a social good being created, which is the team, there's now higher positive yield. So I'm glad that everybody figured out the way to minimize negative yield is to stake last. That's so brilliant. I'm so proud of you. Now we're going to learn how to create and control positive yield. Does that make sense? Just because our chart's at an all-time low does not mean EPRs can't be at an all-time high consistently. Are you guys ready? We won't need a gratuity tax to convince people to play if the channelers get good at their job, right? Do you guys get it? Yeah. If the channelers get good at their job, again, the channelers can get so good at their job that what? Did you guys see the diagram? Do you guys want to go back and look at it? Electronic, yeah. Has anybody done that yet? Yeah, but electronic, it's not about the difficulty of doing it. It's like, electronic, what if somebody creates a bot that just DDoSes the website until it crashes? What if somebody detonates an EMP that just crashes the fucking servers? Yeah, what if somebody finds out where I live and they just poison me in the night? Yeah, electronic, this game getting better literally stops that from happening. But by the way, electronic, what you're describing is pestering. There are diminishing returns for pestering. Secondly, electronic, to answer your own question, what you're saying is, how do we counteract more negative yield? Oh, it's not impossible. It's about incentive. The channelers can get so good at their job that 500 people can play per epoch. Do you guys see this? 500, 10,000. This is a diagram I made for you guys. So what if somebody runs a bot that smolders 50 times? I guess the channelers have to get good at their job. Yeah, but then also, yeah, the return, Pega, I want you to notice, Pega, you've been here for 6 months. Electronic, you've been here for 6 months. Everybody practiced smoldering, but at the same time, the incentive to do it is just like, it's not clear to people. Yeah. Oh no, I mean in the open beta though, like literally like when the Witch game actually existed, right? So like you guys have already, yeah, electronic, there's been 6 months of this. Like why didn't you make the bot? Because you didn't feel motivated to do so, right? Like what was the return in it for you? What was in it for you to do that? Again, what you're describing is pestering. It's extremely valid. It's right here on this diagram. Yeah. So what happens if somebody's creating extra smoldering? The channel's going to get better at their job. Duh. How we will offset the negative yield? By picking a higher target EPR. Duh. Yeah, this is the same math problem. Yeah, electronic, what happens if we increase the user base? The smoldering will go up as well. Duh. Yeah, what happens if somebody recruits 50 virtual assistants to smolder, right? It doesn't matter whether it's a bot. Yeah, again, you guys keep confusing about the difficulty of doing it with the incentive of doing it. Yeah, like a fucking mother will lift a fucking car off their child if they're motivated to do it, but they can't do it without the incentive. Yeah, like the difficulty, There has to be incentive to do it, right? Any single one of you guys right now can build a bomb in your kitchen and then strap it to your vest and then walk into a bank and blow yourself up. Every one of you can do that right now. You can do it today. Why aren't you doing it? Anybody could do it. I think a lot of people, it's interesting just how completely blank like the human condition is to them. Like the human layer is just not observed. But it's okay. It's maybe better that you guys focus on the blockchain or something like that. I certainly can't. But yeah, like why isn't everyone doing that right now today? Some people do that. Some people do put dynamite vests on and go commit terrorism, right? Is it the difficulty of building a dynamite vest? I assure you it's not. Cost, benefit, analysis. Cost, benefit, analysis. Cost, benefit, analysis. This is a decision-making process that all humans, in fact animals and plants, also engage in this. Electronic, I have zero proof that you're not a bad actor. I have zero proof that any of you are not a bad actor. Yeah. Yeah, why am I worried about this? Yeah, why am I worried about this? If the channelers get good at their job, somebody could build a smoldering bot that smolders 1,000 times and the channelers can still offset that. Smoldering offset targets for IWV yield. You can literally create a target. Isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting? Literally, like, if everybody agrees to minimize their greed per epoch, they can actually together collectively hedge against negative yield. In fact, they could quadruple, quintuple the yield that just was released last fucking epoch, right? And everybody would have made more money. They would have made a higher return on input versus output. The same amount of money getting staked. Well, maybe not, but the same amount of money getting distributed. We will be getting more and more in depth about cost-benefit analysis and the channelers and the covens later on. Channelers and bannerets cannot be the same people because there is meant to be information asymmetry in this game. Meaning, channelers want to make sure that knights do not learn their plan. However, the good news is that until we get to TWAPs higher than 0.8, there's no real point to knights. So even though I think everybody is in like the knight position as far as like getting back to boardroom prince, the knights are kind of like not present right now. There are no knights. Does that make sense? There are not, like, I mean, the knight game doesn't really apply until the boardroom prince. Does that make sense? Yeah, exactly. Correct, ZeroKex. So the channelers, witches, they also don't need to be aligned with a certain chain, which is why we have 3 chains. Does that make sense? So the knights, they have 3, okay, the bannerets, and I'll make this in a different color. Let's see. Let's use this. Bannerets, 9 per chain. Channelers, 27 total. Does that make sense? So this is 27, meaning we also add 9 per chain, but the channelers are not required to be focused on a certain chain, whereas knights are kind of focused on a certain chain. Do you guys get what I'm saying? Bannerets are, because it's too many coins to look at, right? So bannerets, they got to look at 2 ohm, 3 ohm, and Z ohm, whereas a channeler can look at Pyre Phantom, Pyre BNB, and Pyre AVAX. Do you get what I'm saying? So like three coins to look at. If we add a 4th chain, which we will, channelers will now be capped at 36. Do you get what I'm saying? Electronic, there is no incentive of botting because someone would already be doing it. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know why you think that we need to do that. Yeah, like the incentive is that the channelers are going to get good at their fucking job. Yeah. Because the fact of the matter is, like, the channelers with their teamwork being able to outcompete the fucking bots means that at a certain point, the person running the bot is going to have diminishing returns. And then the person running the bot will stop botting, and then the channelers will be even richer. Like, they'll just get rich. Yeah. They'll just get rich from the fucking fact that the bot tried, the bot left, and then they were able to maintain that standard. Well, CJ, the fact that we have less than 10 players, we only had 8 players this round, is the perfect time to actually implement the fucking channelers. Yeah. Yeah, Zonic, I should hope so, because the game never stops. Pega, brilliant. Pega, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. So it's almost like they have a balancing act. Yeah. They have to stake, okay, Pega, they have to stake a small amount to maximize APR, but they also need to stake large enough where what? What are they insulating themselves from? There's a degree of trust they can't give out. Somebody whaling the Witch Vault, right? So they have to all agree to be in the middle of the pack. They all have to agree to be like a middle of the pack EPR. You'll notice here on this diagram that we have a third column of EPR yields, and it's 1%, 4%, and 16%. Do you get what I'm saying? So like, I don't really know if I expect the game to work with like a 700% EPR. Does that make sense? Electronic, I don't think you understand. When the game has a higher amount of players, that usurping bot, there'll be 7 of them, and they'll be usurping each other. Yeah, like I know that maybe game theory is not everybody's strong point, but like you have to understand, when you increase the amount of actors at play, you're literally increasing the amount of variability that bots are not good at botting for. Yeah. Does that make sense? Like, we're taping the usurping guard off. We're taking the usurping guard off. But we're only going to do that when the game gets chaotic enough. Because the usurping bot will fail all on its own. Fexer, yeah. People will continue to play as long as the channelers understand what their job is. And Fexer, you agree that that counterbalances there as well. Because there's diminishing returns for that. Yeah. But legitimately, this is how a credit union works. Does that make sense? Like, in a credit union, you do have people that won't play by the rules. Does that make sense? Like, the channelers will give out an instruction. They'll be like, hey, everybody stake 24,000. And then somebody will still stake 500,000. And they'll be like, okay, we can figure out who this person is, and we're going to exclude him from conversations. Now, additionally, once the channelers figure out who they're shunning, they can begin... There's other things they can do to get that player to fall in line. Maybe they'll build a smoldering bot. Maybe they'll build a usurping bot. Who fucking knows? It's all on the table. Generally speaking, though, through the balance of power in the coven from the channelers themselves, they'll be able to control a lot more than you guys realize. Well, Electronic, we're going to begin training channelers so that we're able to entice new people, not only through mentorship, but the fact that channelers will get to figure out how to increase positive yield. Do you guys understand? So we're going to pick probably 3 channelers. I think channelers will be senior people who play the game. And we're going to keep training on this. We're going to keep training this on everybody. And then eventually, these channelers, first of all, channelers have a private chat in the Discord. I don't know if you guys know this. And effectively, it's their job to kind of figure out who they want to share information with and who they don't. There's another role in this Discord. Do you guys know what it's called? It's between Conjurer and Channelers. Do you guys know the middle role here? It's called Thaumaturge. And this is a player that is, I guess you could say, they are trusted by the channelers, that they are at least not aligned with knights. However, they don't need to be a quote-unquote decision maker for the coven. Does that make sense? So, as we increase the user base, there will be an entirely other channels where channelers and channelers talk to each other, channelers and thaumaturges talk to each other, and then channelers, thaumaturges, and conjurers all talk in the general chat, right? Everybody's a conjurer, though, but that's not really clear whether or not they're aligned with maybe a knighthood. Maybe they're masquerading. Channelers and thaumaturges can also go pretend to be knights over in the other servers when the boardroom prints happen. But I'm going to at least train how literally channelers using communication, and arguably, there's other apps besides Discord. Like one of them is called Beeble.io, and by the way, you can set up chats in these apps where literally you have to connect with a wallet. Does that make sense? It's literally like a Web3 chat app. And basically, in later versions of PYRESWAP and the GPSE, people can do this all on their own. They can literally throw together a Web3 chat app. They can say, okay, only wallets that have this much Pyre Phantom in liquidity can enter. And therefore, they'll know, okay, everybody here is a Pyre Phantom LPer, and therefore we can keep information enclosed here about how we're managing the association. Okay, we're about 1 hour and 7. Do you guys have any questions? Oh, CJ, yeah, I literally just got sent. I just got sent the spreadsheet earlier today. So literally, I was waiting for a bunch of interviews to get done, and then I literally just got sent it in a packet today. Literally like midnight last night. Yeah. So yeah, I will DM you. I see a few people typing, so I'll wait for questions. Oh, interesting. Okay, good to know. Is that a Discord? Is that a Discord thing? Okay. Well, ZeroKex, right now, we as the circus, we're not going to do this at all. Yeah, we're not going to do this at all. Rather, we will pick a few channelers and then let the channelers decide. Yeah, we will literally just give it to the fucking channelers to be like, okay, you decide how you want to fucking regulate this. It's not about us just controlling everything forever. What the goal is that once we have channelers and bannerets established, they're the ones managing the fucking financial situation of these projects. Does that make sense? Because they're gonna have red candles, they're gonna have green candles. Right now, it's still just the circus doing it. But when we eventually establish this, the channelers and the bannerets will understand that the outcomes are all under their control. Okay, No more questions? All right. Well, thank you guys so much for coming to the PYRESWAP show. I'm going to do my little salute out. We'll see you guys tomorrow for a Thankful Thursday. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your day.